javelins, freelancers, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another report from Anthem Universe. I am but one of your hosts, Gaz, and today we're going to talk about choice, in particular, the choice you will make on February 22. Now we do know, of course, that once you achieve level 2 in Anthem, you will be making a choice of one of the 4 javelins. So up until that point, you'll be trialing the old school javelin. Beyond that, of course, level 2, 8, 16, and 24, you will make a choice. But who will you choose and why? We've done some quantitative research, if you will, around the subject, and we've leveraged the Twitter sphere in order to do that. And a poll that you'll see up on screen right now will give you some interesting insights into where at least a huge part of the community is heading. Now, obviously this is not representative of everybody, but one cannot deny in marketing and analysis that 2,000 plus votes is a pretty good indication of where a bell curve might sit. And as you can see here, the Storm is in fact the people's popular vote, which is probably not too surprising. However, I did expect that the Ranger would be a little bit closer, if not slightly in front of Storm, so that does surprise me a little bit. And of course, Colossus and Interceptor trailing a little bit behind those indeed. Now, I'll reflect on that based on a few things. One, a bit of a look in terms of psychology, and 2, my own personal experiences with the gameplay that Anthem Universe has experienced to this point. Now, we live in an unprecedented age of options, and of course Anthem is no different. But choice is difficult. It also represents sacrifice. Choosing something inherently usually means you're giving up something else. But in Anthem we know that that's actually not the case. You don't have to give up something per se. You can still choose another javelin along your journey. You can swap out your javelin suits. But again, who will you choose up front and why? So I started to look at what are the things that impact people's choice and that will impact your choice on February 22nd. And a lot of the answers lie in psychology, in fact. Now some of you may be familiar with this, but if you're not, I'll try and keep it brief. Now, framing has a big impact on your decisions. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is this concept called anchoring bias. Now, what we tend to do, we tend to anchor our decisions around the first piece of information we received. So for example, you'll recall that the Ranger was always out in front and always has been presented as the poster suit of Anthem. This meant that because of anchor bias theory, I actually presumed, to be honest with you, that Ranger would be the most popular. However, my perceptions changed after some gameplay experience, in particular over the last 6 months, and in particular seeing the Colossus in action. The second element that is impacting decisions here is something called framing effect bias. Okay, now this is when, I guess, your choices are impacted by the order and how things are presented. So in this case, a little bit like the first one, framing effect bias indicates that Ranger and Colossus will be front of mind for a lot of people because they were the first things that people experienced, the first things that people saw with Anthem. In fact, you recall the first gameplay we ever saw of Anthem, the post-June 2018 at least, the significant gameplay I mean in particular, was all Colossus. The first stronghold we saw was all Colossus. So hence, the logic there is that these two suits will be quite prominent, which I think they will be. The third parameter here is in-group bias. Right, so then we have this, what we call the bandwagon effect, or some of you might know the idea of groupthink. Now I think Storm is actually falling into this concept. The magic Storm, the brilliant Storm, the wonders of Storm create a real sense of magic, aura, energy, and excitement in people. So people really want to go for that suit. But I actually think that it gets kind of caught up in it, if you know what I mean. The community and conversations get excited about it, and everyone gets excited about it. I'm convinced that whilst you see that higher percentage for the Storm out in front, that we won't see that as a result on the first day. In fact, I think we'll see something different, which I'll talk about in a moment. Another framing that impacts all this is what we call loss aversion bias. And that's where someone actually in the community, and you've all heard it, I've heard people say it in Discord as well, and it's when you say, I want them all. I just want to play them all. Just give them to me, BioWare. That's called loss aversion, because the reality is you don't want to miss out on something. That's pretty normal, and I think most of us in some way are experiencing that right now. And one of the last biases that is relevant here is ambiguity bias. Now, this essentially draws off our innate aversion to risk. So for example, you choose something that you know you're going to be comfortable with based on your comfort zone, you know? There's a risk aversion. For example, in Mass Effect, I always pick the soldier because I'm a soldier, damn it. I like the biotic, I like the adept, I like that you could change it up, but I was always a soldier, and I always picked that for my first playthrough. For a lot of you guys, I think Colossus might form that. I think there's a lot of people out there that pick soldier for their first class in Mass Effect, and I similarly think that a lot of people are going to actually go with Colossus. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with my point before. Whilst the popular vote seems to be Storm, I'm not so sure if that will hold true on the day of launch, but we'll see how we go. In all, it's a bit of an interest in terms of psychology, framing, and biases. What informs your decision? What informs your capability of choice? Here's what I think will actually happen. I think Colossus will be the most used in the first few weeks, and I think Colossus is a very attractive piece. If you need to recommend Anthem because people are on the fence, I strongly encourage you to push Colossus onto people. I know that sounds a bit aggressive, but it is fun. I'm just going to say it's fun, it's bombastic, it's so difficult to not enjoy Colossus that you can't recommend it to somebody. The explosions, the visuals, the aesthetic, the ultimate, everything is just so bombastic and over the top that it's completely worth anyone's time, and I think anyone new to the game or the genre is just going to have a whole lot of fun running around with the Colossus. As a result, I think it will be the people's choice, despite what the votes are saying right now. Second, I think Ranger will see a massive upturn in engagement post the early weeks. Now, I will say this, 100% of players in playtesting that I've been involved with have changed at the level up for rank 2. So that is to say, they played the tutorial Ranger, and at level 2, all made the choice to switch. So that basically means Ranger's early adoption will be low. And if you think about it, it's a psychological concept. You are given a free choice of 4 suits, one of which is relatively, in some ways, kind of visually similar to the one you've got now. What's the natural thing for most humans to do is to pick something that they want to go with that's a bit different, something that's going to be changed up a little bit for them. Of course, many will still pick Ranger because it's comfortable and they're familiar, but I suspect you'll find in the early days, less people will be using Ranger, but it will make a comeback, and I'm thinking maybe it'll make a comeback in the form of a meta. So perhaps, as we've seen earlier, a certain build type, perhaps a certain fast build type, for example, a speedrun on a stronghold, stuff like that. But at the moment, I think in the early days it'll be lower adoption, but it will come back into the fray later. Number 3, Interceptor will maintain a consistently lower but stable adoption rate. I think of all the 4, despite it being my most favorite suit and I love it so much, I think it'll be the less favored of all the suits, purely because of its melee concept. I think it polarizes people a little bit, probably more than the other 3 suits. Storm obviously is more ability centric and certainly less weapon based, but you can see with the correct build you can still build out a battle rifle and really have something nice going on with Storm. With Interceptor you can still do that as well, but its speed and its agility means that you just go for the melee. Every time with the Interceptor, you go for the melee. It's so much fun, it's so fast, it's so fluid, it makes sense to do it. But as a result, I think it also means that some of its abilities, and even its ultimate, sometimes get overlooked a little bit because it's so much is going on, it's so fast and so rapid. So that's where I think, to a certain extent, Interceptor will be popular, but I just don't see it being as popular as the other 3 exosuits. We'll see. Lastly, my points on Storm. As I said, I think Storm will maintain a popular vote. I think it'll be a close number 2 to Colossus, and then Ranger will surge to the top again in the later concepts, particularly as people get excited about the Iron Man concept, etc. Look, I might be completely wrong with all this, but I thought this would be an interesting look at the psychology of choice, who you're going to choose and why. Drop a comment below, let us know what you think. Who will you choose and why? Jump on the Twitters, engage, talk, and let's share some ideas around choice, psychology, who you will pick and why. Of course, February 22 is not far away, and many of you will be involved in the VIP and open beta perhaps before then. So you will probably get a pretty good chance at least at having a look at what you like that will hopefully frame your choice on February 22. We'll see how successful or pathetic my predictions may be on February 22. We're going to leave it there, Javelins. Check us out, of course, at Anthem Universe on Twitter. You can, of course, check us out at anthemuniverse.com and in the Discord. Jump in, have a chat, share your conversations around your choices. What order are you going to pick? It's probably another great conversation. We'll talk more about that in the Discord, which is discord.anthemuniverse.com. I am Olgaz at Anthem Universe. Javelins, freelancers, we will see you next over the wall.